Okay, buddy, let's review the lesson. So we are talking about more of these darn trig identities, where we can take something that is pretty like big and messy and simplify it all the way down to a simpler answer. So we need our identity sheets so that we can simplify things. But a couple of things that are going to help, because these are getting a little bit harder. First of all, anything that we can change into sine or cosine, we will. Okay, sine and cosines, anything we can do that, we'll do. And another thing is, anytime we see these squares, anything squared, we're going to go to our Pythagorean identities, because we got up all of our squared identities here. Okay, so two things, sines and cosines, and if it's a squared Pythagorean identity. Okay, so number one, I have a cotangent, okay, times a 1 plus tangent squared. Now 1 plus tangent squared, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a squared. 1 plus tangent squared is a secant squared, so I changed that to a secant squared. And then I started changing things into sines and cosines. Cotangent is cosine over sine. Secant squared, secant is 1 over cosine, 1 over cosine squared. And tangent is sine over cosine. Now it looks worse, looks like I did much worse. I changed everything to sines and cosines, but I got a fraction divided by a fraction, so I flipped the second fraction. So this sine over cosine flips up to cosine over sine, and lo and behold, I get some cancellation of some cosines and another cosine, and I'm left with just a 1 on top and a sine times a sine squared. That can be a cosecant squared, because 1 over sine is a cosecant. Simplifies. Okay, example 2. Well, example 2, what I'm going to do is common factor. And I went through and I kind of showed everybody how to common factor, something we've done before. These two have a common sign. So I factored out a common sign. Helps me quite a bit, because if I take out a sine out of both terms, I'll have a sine squared plus a cosine squared left. And that's one of my identities. Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. So I wrote my 1 times my sine is just sine. Simplified to quite a bit. I like that. It's nice when they simplify. Okay. Number 3. Now number 3 looks kind of complicated, but I did do a couple of things. First of all, let's take a look at the easy part. Sine, cosecant. Okay. Cosecant is 1 over sine, and that's very handy because they will cancel, okay? Now this one takes a trick, okay? And I went back and I showed the kids, well, we know how to factor x squared minus 1 is x plus 1, x minus 1. That is going to help us here. I'll show you how. Before I do anything, cotangent squared can be rewritten as a cosecant squared minus 1. Now why would I do that? If I change it to cosecant squared minus 1, then it factors like this. And you can see that if I factor it into a cosecant plus 1 and a cosecant of x minus 1, I knew from this 1 plus cosecant that would help me. Then I can cancel those. Okay, so then that's gone. I'm left with a cosecant of x minus 1 plus 1. The 1's cancel. It's just cosecant. Okay, and I changed the homework to 1 to 12 today, just to make it a little bit easier for the kids. And then we will talk more about these tomorrow. That's all I have. Okay, if you have any questions, ask me. Please do your homework.